Hello, all you legal-minded friends. You are here because you know information is power. And in today's video, we are going to talk about some of the coincidences that I want to highlight to you that stood out to me in the investigation and the trials seeking justice for the Florida father, Dan Markel, who was shot in the head twice in cold blood just after he had arrived home and pulled into his driveway on the 18th of July 2014. And I've done several videos on this case, which you can see up on the screen over there. Or is it there? I don't know which way to point. I don't know if you guys can see, but I can see this white streak coming down. I don't know what that is. So anyways, forgive me for that. So let's get started. And to talk about this, the meaning of this, we're going to use some examples from the law enforcement investigation into Dan Markel's death and the subsequent trials that took place, as there is lots of coincidences. If you don't believe me, take a listen.
Carefully, but isn't carefully the same thing as code?
No, they're two totally separate things. Do you know the difference?
You weren't really giving her money for a TV, were you?
Giving her money for a TV.
This TV is probably going to be about $5. I need you to bring cash tonight.
I wish she picked another object on planet Earth other than TV. But TV is code for absolutely nothing. There is no code in this case involving TV, and you keep circling and circling and circling TV. You're wrong.
Is it a coincidence that the repair of the TV that you bought Wendy as a divorce gift because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman is your sister's alibi for the murder, and then your mom brings up TV first call on the wire?
It's not an alibi for a murder. She had a broken TV. You got to ask Lincoln who threw the remote at the TV.
Was it a coincidence? Is the TV thing a coincidence? That's what I hear you say.
Oh, that the repairman was there that day?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is a coincidence for sure. There's a couple of coincidences in this case.
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I said there's a couple of coincidences in this case. I mean, she had people send her an email to go buy a bottle of Bullet Bourbon for their stock the bar party, and she was driving to a liquor store to buy a bottle of Bullet Bourbon on that day, at that time. And her friend sent the email, and you have the email and evidence. Like, is that a coincidence? Yeah, coincidences happen.
Okay, so I've turned the camera around to see if that would make a difference, and turned it sideways. So I think the first thing we should do is define what a coincidence is. And in the Oxford Dictionary, it describes it as a remarkable concurrence of events or casual connection. Cambridge Dictionary describes it as an occasion when two or more similar things happen at the same time, especially in a way that is unlikely and surprising. Okay, now I'm not sure, I wasn't crazy about those. So the next dictionary that I found that I think relates more to what I would say is, you know, kind of a better definition, and it describes it as a coincidence is when two or more similarities or related events occur at the same time by chance without planning. So and then now I'm going to talk about a Harvard study, that a report that was done, and they talk about coincidences and how they can be explained by simple rules, and they define coincidences as surprising concurrence of events perceived as meaningful, related with no apparent causal connection. So we've got a whole bunch of definitions, and personally I think the Collins Dictionary is the best one to go with, but we'll let you decide, as we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things that have happened in this case that one might say are coincidences. On the screen, you can see Wendi Adelson at the police station. See if you notice anything. I'm going to keep one of the photos up on the screen on the top left there for you to see. So I want you to listen to a story of a coincidence that happened to me a few years back, as I think it fits into this category that I'm going to tell you about. Okay, so years ago, I had been on holiday in a foreign country, and I had brought my credit card. However, I forgot my PIN number to the credit card. I was dreading the time and effort it would take to order a new PIN number. I was also worried about how I was going to pay for stuff. After checking into the hotel room, there it was. the room number was my PIN number. It was right there. Now, what are the chances of that? But this story, I think, fits into my memory coming back to me once I saw the room number, obviously. So is it a coincidence that the room number happened to be my PIN number? Now, if you think about it this way, if I had not forgot my PIN number, would I have even noticed that the numbers on the door were the same? Okay, so does that make sense? Think about that. So, and this is one of the points that the report from Harvard makes. Coincidences happen all the time, and they are only surprising when we notice them. So now I'm going to play a short clip of Luis Rivera in his interview, and then I'm going to see if you recognize anything that might be a coincidence. I'll give you a bit of background before I play this clip. You can see Luis Rivera in the red prison uniform. He admitted to driving the rental car to Tallahassee. We will hear another coincidence about the rental car in just a bit. However, Luis Rivera testified against Katherine Magbanua, and I'm just letting you know that because he does mention her name in this clip, so you'll know who she is. But she was the one that he said she paid him for the hit. And Luis Rivera also testified against Katie's on-again, off-again ex and father of her children, Sigfredo Garcia, who is the one who shot Dan Markel in Tallahassee. Because Rivera decided to cooperate with law enforcement, the state offered him a lesser sentence than life in prison. Listen carefully to what he says to law enforcement in his interview.
And do not stay there the whole night. I parked the car in the back, just sitting there. I didn't do nothing. I was throw a picture of the owl, like I told you, posted on Instagram.
He saw an owl, a bird, I don't know what kind, it sounded like a barred owl maybe, that landed in the parking lot at the hotel and
Took a picture
scared him.
And what happened after you took a picture? What you did?
I took a picture and put it on Instagram.
And then what happened?
Katie calls Doodle. Tell him to take that shit down. If he's stupid or what. So, you know, I'm like, well, I took it down.
So now do you see what Wendi Adelson is wearing on the day her ex-husband, Dan Markel, is shot? The photo is blurry, but I found another one. Here, let me show you. So what do you think? Is it a coincidence that she's wearing a t-shirt with a white owl on it the day her ex-husband, Dan Markel, is shot? Why is this so curious? Well, the meaning of a white owl, as you can see on the screen, in Native American culture is a symbol of death. I did play for you what Luis Rivera said in his police interview, that he took a photo of an owl and put it on Instagram. When Katherine Magbanua saw it, remember, she's one of the conspirators, and she was found guilty by a jury and is spending life in prison. Well, she told him to remove it because obviously it would be evidence that would prove they were in Tallahassee, Florida. And according to the Native American culture, hearing an owl's hooting during the night is a bad omen. I left a link below to Luis Rivera's police interview. It is worth watching as he goes on to say that he had a bad feeling about taking part in this crime. Remember, he was the driver. Which leads nicely to some more coincidences, and I say plural because in my opinion there are at least a couple. Let's listen to a clip from Wendi Adelson's ex-boyfriend, Jeff Lacasse, when he gave testimony 4 years ago. So the background is they were introduced by one of Jeff's students. He was I think he still is, a professor at Florida State University. They had dated for a few months, and then he was getting mixed signals from Wendy, and we're going to listen to how he explains the breakup.
Probably March, April timeframe, I started to wonder. So not too long after we became a couple, I guess what I was wondering is, have we really become a couple, or is she still doing what she was doing before?
So was it like, did you find like text messages or direct messages on social media that made you kind of go, what's going on here?
No, I didn't see any text messages or anything on social media. Her behavior was just erratic. She would disappear. She would get home very late at night. So there were signs like that.
Would you talk to her about it?
I tried to.
Okay. So let me ask it this way.
Yeah.
Did she understand that you were concerned about her being loyal to you, or your relationship being a monogamous one?
To be completely honest, I think we kind of pussyfooted around that until we had that big fight at the end of June. That's what that argument was about.
Let's talk about that big fight.
Yeah.
You're at dinner?
We were actually up in the hotel room. The night was basically over. It was pretty late. It was 9 or 10 o'clock at night when this discussion happened.
Okay. And had she had any alcoholic beverages at that point?
We both had, but I think just 1 or 2 glasses of wine a couple hours earlier.
Just socially with dinner, maybe?
Yeah,
Okay.
there was no more drinking than that.
And did you say, listen, I think this, that, or the other? Did you have any specifics, or were you just giving a vague, I'm concerned about where this relationship is?
The latter. I was pretty specific. I told her I was very concerned. I was particularly concerned because the way she had framed our relationship was, you're not just becoming my boyfriend. I have children. I'm a mother. It's like I was auditioning for the job of husband and father is actually sort of how it felt in retrospect. So I bonded with the kids pretty tightly. And as you can imagine in a relationship, that kind of discussion gets more complicated when you're serious and there's kids. And she had been talking about me moving in. She had told me not to buy a house. She had told me not to buy a Jeep, that I needed to buy a vehicle that 2 car seats could fit in. So
it sounds like you guys were heading down that path.
Yeah, hence why I raised the issue, because I had some intuitions everything wasn't quite right. Her behavior had been a little erratic, and I was worried about moving in and ending up in a really bad situation, actually.
Did you feel it the next morning?
What do you mean by feel it, sir?
Was she acting any different the following morning?
Oh, the next day was probably the most awkward car ride I've ever had in my life. We rode from Gainesville to Tallahassee. She was crying. I was very upset. It was a very awkward 3-hour drive.
It's a 3-hour drive?
3 or 4, however long it is.
Okay, from Gainesville to Tallahassee, however long that was.
Yeah, exactly, sorry.
And this was in June, you said June 20th?
That would have been June 29th. That's the Sunday, the last Sunday in June.
Did you think it's unusual? Well, let me ask this. At some point, did you ever see a picture of Dan Markel?
Sure.
Do you think that there's a resemblance between yourself and him?
Everybody always says that. When I was dating her, no one ever brought it up. I see it from the pictures. In real life, I was never told that while we were dating.
And as you indicated before, you're also a professor?
Yes, correct.
I've now added to the screen a photo of Wendi Adelson and Dan Markel, her ex-husband, that, if you remember, he was shot. So is this another coincidence that Jeff and Dan look alike? That is what a lot of people are saying on the internet. So we heard Jeff telling us that on the 29th of June 2014, they had this kind of difficult conversation and a big fight. When they got back, Wendi Adelson sent him an email saying that she had to think about where she wanted to go in the relationship, and she wanted a week without contact. Now, the police do read that email out in the police interview that they did with Jeff. What happens next is very interesting, to say the least. So let's have a listen.
She was not able to relocate?
No, she was quite bitter about it, actually. It was, as I said, a topic that came up, that tone came up on those first 2 dates.
All right. Did she make any statements to you in reference to her brother considering options to take care of this problem with her not being able to relocate?
Yes, she did.
All right, Mr. Lacasse, when we broke, we were talking about statements made to you by Wendi Adelson about her brother considering options to take care of her relocation problem. What, if any, statements did she tell you to that effect?
Yes, ma'am. On July 13th, 2014, Wendy and I were speaking, and she asked me if she could share something with me confidentially. I told her sure. She mentioned, or she said, that Charlie had explored all options to take care of the problem, and that he had looked into having Professor Markel killed. It would cost about $15,000. I later talked to Investigator Eisman and said that could have been $50,000. They sound an awful lot alike.
Okay, so you're not sure if she said 15 or 50?
That's right, but I'm confident she made that statement. I just can't remember the exact dollar amount. And she did state that was during the relocation battle of the previous summers when that had taken place.
All right. And the day that she made the statement to you was July 13th of 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
So in that clip, I did speed it up, which you can slow down by going to the settings wheel in the top right corner that you can see on this video. Just tap there. If you want to see instructions, go to the short video playlist and look for this video. It will take you through the steps. Okay, let's get back to the next coincidence. So after they took that sidebar, basically they were objecting to what we just heard, that whilst they were on a break, Wendi Adelson disclosed her biggest secret to Jeff. Is that a coincidence? That she tells Jeff 6 days before Dan Markel was shot that her brother had wanted to seriously hire a hitman. Wendi Adelson denied ever saying this. Then Jeff goes on to say he and Wendy met up at yoga after this, and Wendy wanted to know if he was still going away on the 18th. That was the day Dan Markel was shot. So let's listen to Jeff explain this next coincidence.
Are you aware, Mr. Lacasse, that Ms. Adelson suggested you as a possible suspect in this homicide?
Yes, I am.
And where were you when Dan Markel was murdered?
I was on the road to Tennessee. I originally had a trip planned for 11 a.m. on Friday the 18th, and I had, at the last moment, changed my trip to Thursday night. So
you left early?
I left early without telling anyone, other than the people at the destination. Ms. Adelson was the only person I had told in Tallahassee about the time that I was leaving, which was 11 a.m. on the 18th. I had informed her about that in around June 10th.
All right, so originally it was going to be July 18th at 11 a.m. would be your departure?
Yes, ma'am.
And would you be flying or driving?
I was driving.
All right, and it changed to Thursday night, so you left the night before and were in Tennessee at the time of the homicide?
That's correct.
No further questions.
In that clip, we hear the prosecutor ask Jeff if he was aware that Wendy had suggested he was a possible suspect. However, this is slightly not true. Let's have a listen, because it's actually someone else that suggests it.
If you don't do that, that's
Jane,
not right.
Who would have done this?
I have just
And
one
are they
idea.
going to come after my kids? Or me? Who's next?
Is Jeff this much of a lunatic?
I don't even think of Jeff. I hope to God not.
Let me ask who Jeff is.
Yeah, of course.
I think you should. I think Wendy's been seeing a guy called Jeff.
Who's a friend of Jane's. And
But who's jealous.
yeah.
Are you still currently seeing him, or just something you kind of
Well,
let taper off?
it's been a bad week.
Okay.
Yeah, Jane and I actually went for a walk together Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, earlier this week.
But you've taken a 1 week break from
I took
Jeff.
a 1 week break from communication with Jeff to figure out what to do.
So, as we just heard in that police interview, Wendi Adelson's, her friend Jane, who set Jeff and Wendy up, remember, she is a student of Jeff's. She comes to the police station and suggests that it could have been Jeff because of their big fight, him being jealous, and being on a break. Is it a coincidence that the prosecutor said it that way, or was it to influence? But it gets worse. Jeff was leaving town the same day, around the same time that Dan Markel was shot. And we later hear that Jeff had the same type of car that the hitman had rented, a Toyota Prius. Same color. Is this a coincidence or calculated to make it look like Jeff Lacasse is a suspect? What are the chances that the hitman rented the same type and color of car that Jeff Lacasse had? Luis Rivera only said that he rented the car. Sigfredo Garcia, the other hitman, was given a picture of Dan Markel with his address. Luis Rivera rented the Prius. He does not mention that they were told what type of car to rent. He does say that Katherine Magbanua said it had to happen that day. And at 11:02, a neighbor called police. After hearing gunshots, the neighbor looked out his window and saw the Prius backing out of the driveway of Dan Markel's house. So if Jeff would have left at the same time that he told Wendi Adelson, wow, that would have been a different situation for Jeff, and he would have definitely been a suspect. So is it a coincidence that Jeff decided to leave the night before the shooting took place? Or was Jeff just feeling a little restless after the realization that they had broken up? Either way, he did not leave at the time he told Wendi Adelson, or it would have made Jeff look a lot more suspicious. This is why you should listen to your gut feelings, and Jeff was able to prove that he was somewhere else at the time of the shooting. The next coincidence I want to play for you is we hear Charlie Adelson and the prosecutor discussing Wendi Adelson driving by the scene of the crime. What I want you to keep in mind is that we know that Wendi Adelson called Charlie during that time. What we don't know is what she said. But if we put something else together with this, Luis Rivera in his interview said that they called Katherine Magbanua to say the hit was done. And she replied, I know. Is that a coincidence? Or can we assume Wendi Adelson, when she had been talking to Charlie that day, she had told him, I just drove down Trescott Road and the road was blocked by police. She said she had thought a tree had maybe fallen down. So Charlie could have put 2 and 2 together and could have called Katie, and that's how Katie knew when she was talking to Sigfreda Garcia. Or is it just another coincidence? Well, Charlie seems to think there's a lot of coincidences, but is the prosecutor buying it? Let's hear them have it out in court.
Can we agree that she obviously knew something about this crime?
She found out when she came to court. I never told her anything.
I'm talking about the murder of Dan Markel. She knew something, right? I mean, it's not a coincidence she went to the crime scene, is it?
You're talking about the route that she took that day?
I'm talking about her pulling up to the crime scene tape.
She never went to the crime scene. She was going to buy a bottle of liquor that, coincidentally, the person sent her a stop the bar party for buy a bottle of bullet bourbon that she was going to pick up. She wasn't driving to a crime scene. And I think she made that clear, too. Nobody knew a murder was taking place.
She pulled up to the crime scene tape, Dr. Adelson.
She didn't pull up to the crime scene tape. She was driving down the street and then had to make a U-turn. It was blocked off. But she wasn't going to.
She couldn't help herself.
Nobody knew a murder was going to take place.
She exposed you all to some degree by those actions, didn't she?
No, not at all.
And then she threw you under the bus in her interview, didn't she?
Nobody knew a murder was going to take place.
She knew her husband had just been shot, and they were asking her who would want him dead, and she said your name. Are you mad about that?
No, she said a lot of people's names.
Well, she said yours in the first 25 pages of a 5-hour interview. Isn't that true?
I wasn't there for the interview.
But you've reviewed it in preparation for your trial, haven't you?
I actually don't know if I've seen her interview.
Just so as you know, coincidences can be considered circumstantial evidence. And when they add up, they need some explaining, or else the jury or fact finder can come to their own conclusions as to how they point to guilt. Another coincidence is when Donna Adelson is discussing leaving the country. Her solicitor or attorney says it's because when she was talking to her son, Charlie Adelson, while he was in prison, it was getting all a bit much for her, so she wanted to go on a bit of a holiday. She also wanted to sort out some business. So I found this YouTuber that has a very good soundbite of this, and as it's so clear, and all the other prison calls that I had heard before hadn't really captured it the way this one does. So I will leave you with that. And please check out all the linked sources that I've used below. I'm very proud to announce that Legal Minded Friends, because of your commitment to watching and interacting with our videos, has now got an option for you to make super chats at any time during a premiere, a live, or on a replay. You can see the $sign, and when you push that, you can purchase any amount. It's up to you. There's a sliding scale. Legal Minded Friends will receive 70%, and YouTube receives the other 30%. It's a great way to make your comment stand out and guarantees a response from yours truly. I'm Karen Cole. Information is power. And of course, you can still leave a comment for free, as you never know by leaving a comment how your comment can help someone else that you don't even know. And of course, I love to read all comments. So now let's listen to Wendy after she thought she had hung up on Charlie when she was talking to him when he was in jail. So let's listen to that. And this is the channel that has hosted this. And so please check him out. I will leave a link in the description area.
And the other thing I don't understand, that my daughter could help me with, but we've been looking it up over and over, because things change if there is extradition from Vietnam. Because we've looked at all the places. I mean, I could go to Korea and China, but there's no extradition. But we're looking for places where there's no extradition.
In 15 minutes.
Who? Really? Good. Maybe she knows about. Maybe she can look up the extradition issue before we waste our time.
Is she going to tell on you that my parents are in the country? My lawyer told us to do that. Okay, but if you mention it to Wendy, is Wendy going to tell somebody?
Well, you tell her beforehand. I need to tell you something as an attorney who doesn't talk and has nothing to do with the case. It just has to do with Mom and I and some decisions that we have to make. Yeah, I know you want to bring her up and show her where everything is. Because in a plane crash, no one's going to know where anything is or who belongs to what. So I would like her to come up here so she could see it. I don't think that's asking too much. She can live 3 hours away.
I am preparing an upcoming video where I will compare the differences, the huge differences in law when it comes to prison phone calls in the UK compared to USA. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's a free way that you can support legal-minded friends and be notified when I'm uploading another video. By leaving a comment, you may help someone else that will read your comment. And of course, I love to read all comments as they are valued, and together we can be more informed. And this information may help you or someone you know. I'm Karen Cole from Legal Minded Friends. Information is power, meaning if you know something, you can make decisions that are right for you.